My name is Nick Dinsmore. You might know me as former WWE superstar Eugene. I want to start a series on my YouTube channel, the Nick Dinsmore YouTube channel, where I tell my story of getting into the wrestling business, my life, and just kind of get it out there. So please, like this video, subscribe to my channel, comment, share the video so everybody can hear my story. And hopefully this will become a progressive story that goes weekly or daily videos, and we'll just kind of see where it goes. I'm starting something new. So it all begins in 1975 when I was born in Lexington, Kentucky. Long story short, I started watching professional wrestling, the WWF, Saturday Night's Main Event. As I grew up in the Louisville, Kentucky area, I watched the USWA, Memphis Wrestling. I would go to the Louisville Gardens where I'd watch Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, Brian Christopher, Jeff Jarrett. And I remember it was a night to remember. I don't believe, it might have been 1994. I was a senior in high school. And I went to watch USWA. And for the first time, I hung out behind the building after the show where all the fans would hang out and watch the wrestlers leave. And I remember out walked Stan Lane. And I was standing right next to him. It's the closest I'd really been to a professional wrestler on the street. And it was just a cool moment. Billy Jack Haynes came out, Brian Christopher came out, and I knew that I wanted to become a professional wrestler. I then saw a flyer for a show at the Clarksville Skateland. It was Yoshi Kwan, who was on WCW, was running a show. And at the bottom it said, you can have a professional wrestling match, inquire within. So a friend of mine, two friends of mine, they were brothers, Russell and Scott Schickert. We went to the Yoshi Kwan show at the Clarksville Skateland, and we paid our 25, 30, 50 bucks, whatever it was, and we performed our own match. My very first match, my debut match. And my friend, I wrestled Scott, and his brother, Russell the Love Muscle, managed him. So Scott and I were in the back before the show. We had no clue what we were doing, untrained. And I said, why don't we just do a double count out? That way nobody has to lose. All right. So we go out there. And I would like to say that the minute we walked out, there was an instant connection between me and the crowd. And they knew right away that I was going to be a star someday. But the fact of the matter was, it was crickets. I don't even remember how many were in the crowd, but it was less than 100, probably less than 50. And the people we had no idea what we were doing, and it was probably rotten. And long story short, we both roll out of the ring. Referee starts counting. 1, 2. We're probably throwing the worst punches and phoniest looking strikes on the floor. 2, 3, 4. We get close to the count out. My friend Scott rolls back in the ring, and I get counted out. I get screwed on my debut match and lost. After that, I was a senior in high school, and I was nominated for the Homecoming King. I did not win, but I was nominated. And we had the big assembly at school, and as they're announcing the nominees, Nick Dinsmore wants to become a professional wrestler. Yay! A couple days later in school, I went to Our Lady of Providence High School. It was an all-Catholic private school. A girl that I went to school with, that was a couple years younger than me, I think she was a sophomore, I was a senior, walked up to me in the hallway and says, hey, you want to be a pro wrestler? Yeah. My dad runs a wrestling school in Jeffersonville at Clarksville, New Albany are all right together in southern Indiana. Really? What's his name? Nightmare Danny Davis. Now I knew that name because I'd seen him in the magazines. So shortly after that, I went to my very first show at the Nightmare Danny Davis School of Wrestling. And it was a small building, but the minute I saw the ring and I saw guys that were similar to my age in the ring doing the wrestling, I thought, wow, I could do this. I could really do this. So after the show, sat down with Danny in his office. We discussed the terms of taking the class and what would be expected. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. But I qualified for an all-star football game. Played football in high school and amateur wrestled. Qualified for an all-star football game between the Southern Indiana All-Stars and the Louisville, Kentucky All-Stars. The Battle of the Bridge. And I thought, you know, I'm going to train and I'm going to play this football game, and then I'm going to start my pro wrestling. So trained hard, played the game, tore my ACL. This was summer of 1994. I believe I had the surgery in December of 94. And started the rehab process, and took some time. I think I finally enrolled in 96. May of 96 is when I enrolled. And I remember being so excited, getting in the ring. And I was in the ring with Trailer Park Trash. Frank Miller was also in the class when I started. Vic the Bruiser, Victor Lewis, was in the class when I started. Both of them had more experience than me. Sean Pelkey was in the class when I first started. Danny would coach from the floor, so we would work on our moves. And they had an event every Monday night in Louisville, so I got to go down there and I got to be security. So that's when I really start to meet all the wrestlers, and that's when Rip Rogers would come in. I'd seen Rip wrestle, but this is when I finally got to meet him. So I kept training and Danny said, okay, it's time for you to have your very first match. All right, I'm excited. My first match was slated for September the 1st, 1996. In the Davis Arena on Mechanic Street, I wrestled the most handsome man in wrestling, Jason Lee. And all my friends, all my family turned out for the show. And the crowd was normally 100 to 150 people. That night, we packed the arena, 250 people were in there. And it was a small building. I think it only held 200, so it was standing room only. And everybody was excited. Yay! I wrestled my first match. I don't remember if I won or lost. I think I won. Maybe didn't. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. But the point is, I had my first match, September the 1st. And from that point on, I knew, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a professional wrestler. I wanted to be on the WWE. But when I first started, like, being a WWE, WWF at the time, superstar really wasn't like my ultimate goal. I mean, I wanted to do it, but I didn't know if it was like really possible or how to get there, or I just wanted to try professional wrestling. I said, I just want to try this before I go on and have my life. This is something I want to do. I really want to try it. My mother always told me, you need to do it because you don't want to grow up being a wish I had. So, all right, I'll try it. And things just worked out. I did well at the training. I did well in my first match, and I continued to have matches. We had a match every Sunday at the Davis Arena, as well as we toured around the Louisville, Kentucky area with other live events. And it was, I was very green. I was working with people that were much more experienced than me. Well, not much more, but the other students were a year or 2 years more experienced than me. And I wrestled around, but we stayed primarily there in Louisville, and I wrestled the same guys. And then I remember somebody came to me one day and said, do you want to do a show outside of Louisville? Sure. Central City Wrestling. I can't remember the actual name of the promotion, but it was in Central City. And they said, do you want to go down there with us to wrestle at Central City? Of course. So we took off. I think Central City is maybe 2.5 hours from Louisville. And we get there, and we go in the back, and the building was old and dirty and dingy. And there was like one light bulb above the ring with tin foil on a box all the way around it so it shone down. But I thought, man, I thought it was Madison Square Garden. It's the first time I'd ever seen like huge lights like that. Huge lights. And I had my first match there in Central City. It was against Rip Rogers. And I remember he says, can you do that springboard I saw you do in training? Yeah, sure, Rip. Yeah, I can do it. All right. So I get out there. Yay, springboard. And I completely biffed it and landed on my face. And it was the last time I ever did a springboard in a match. So I continued to wrestle for Danny every week, training every week, as well as I was going to college. I went to a branch of Indiana in southern Indiana, Indiana University. And at the time I was just, enjoying life, living life, having fun. And then at a certain point, Shelby had another match, another show, but this one was in Beaver Dam, Kentucky. And I rode down with the Black Hawk, a masked wrestler by the name of David Bell. David also started when I first started. So we rode down there. It was in his car. We rode down to Beaver Dam, talking about how over we were and, how many people we were going to draw. And I remember at some point, we ran over something. I think it was, I don't know if it was a log or animal, or I don't know what it was. But I remember all the lights and electronics went out in his car for a split second. Completely dark outside. Popped back on. We make it to Beaver Dam. Don't remember who I wrestled, but good show. Sold out, packed to the rafters, turning away at the door. Come back out, car won't start. Oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? Dave calls his parents. Okay, we can come down tomorrow, but we got to do it after they get off work, so just hang out. Okay, what are we going to do? So we found a hotel room there in Beaver Dam. I think we each got paid, I'm thinking it was like $17 each or something. And we had enough for the hotel room, and then we had enough for a 6-pack of beer. But Beaver Dam is in a dry county, so we're not allowed to sell beer there. So and we didn't buy illegal alcohol from a bootlegger, and we didn't pay $10 for a warm 6-pack of Busch beer. And then the guy that drove us asked for one of them. And his name was Cousin It. I do remember that, Cousin It. I remember we got up the next morning. We had to get out the hotel room. Car was in the local shop there. And we're walking down the streets, Dave and I. Beaver Dam, Kentucky. We just had a big show last night. We were broke now. I think we had enough just left for value menu at McDonald's for breakfast. Dave looks over at me and he goes, I bet this is how Ric Flair started. And go on in my story, my journey on the Nick Dinsmore YouTube channel. So please like, please subscribe, please share, and I plan to continue making YouTube videos and telling the story. Thank you very much.